So maybe this is your first time looking into buying your own board, or maybe you've bought boards in the past but you weren't sure if they were the right one for you. Either way, I know how intimidating it can be when walking into a shop with so many options. But by the end of this video, I will show you the main things to look for so you can find the perfect snowboard for yourself without being overwhelmed. Now, the first thing you need to know when shopping for a snowboard is what kind of terrain or riding style you'll be using this board for. There are boards that ride everywhere great, but there are also boards that are made for specific terrain. Knowing exactly how or where you enjoy riding before buying a snowboard will ensure that you find the perfect board. Before I explain the different styles of snowboards though, it is important to understand the difference between a twin and a directional board. This can be known as the shape of a snowboard. For a twin board, the nose and tail are symmetrical. So whether you're riding forward or backward, the board will react the same way. And then there are directional snowboards. These boards typically have a longer nose than tail and some other specifications that cause the board to not be symmetrical. When most people hear the term directional snowboard, they immediately think one directional snowboard and are turned off from the idea because they want to have the ability to ride switch. But this is incorrect. For most directional boards, you will have no problem riding them backwards if you wish. But the easiest way to think about it is that because of the technology and engineering, a directional board turns and maneuvers far better in one direction than a twin can in either direction. You may also see directional twin boards out there, which can mean a number of things, such as a twin shape with a directional flex, or a twin shape with a set back stance. This can be confusing, but understand that a directional twin will ride great in whatever terrain the board is designed for as well. Now that we've got that covered, let's check out the different riding styles of snowboards. This is what determines what terrain a board is best suited for. Between different brands, you may see what look like too many styles of snowboards, but for the most part, they can be broken down into three main categories: powder, park, and all mountain boards. As the name implies, a powder board is made specifically for riding in powder or deep snow. From some brands, you might also see boards labeled under the name freeride. These will be boards that are meant to ride big backcountry terrain. With freeride or powder boards, you will usually see boards that are overall wider in the width, directional, and sometimes even have a cut swallowtail. All of these aspects allow for the best floatability from the board, making it easier to ride in deeper snow. And while you wouldn't want to bring a powder board in the terrain park, you might find that they are still really fun to ride on the resort when there's no fresh snow to be found. Because of their directionality and width, powder boards can actually ride the groomers and carve really well. Keeping this in mind, know that if you do buy a powder board, you will not be pigeonholed into only riding powder. Some of the most popular powder boards available now are the Libtech Orca, the Jones Mind Expander, and the Burton Double Dog. Up next, we've got park or freestyle boards. These are going to be primarily twin-shaped and meant to be ridden in the terrain park or in other freestyle settings. Because someone who is riding the park is generally spinning, landing switch, or taking off switch, the twin shape is ideal for this riding style. And while these boards will perform their best in the park, you could ride them in any terrain, although you won't get the ease of float you would in a powder board or the carvability you might find in an all-mountain board. A few popular park boards out right now are the Capita DOA, the Jones Mountain Twin, and the Salomon Assassin. And finally, we've got all-mountain snowboards, which are going to be designed for the most versatile riding. You might typically hear these boards referred to as daily drivers because they can go almost everywhere, whether you want to ride groomers, glades, moguls, powder, jumps, or anything else. With all mountain boards, you will see both twin and directional shaped boards. Although if you're someone who will not be going into the terrain park, I suggest looking at a directional shape. This will just make turning and carving that much more fun. Some of our favorite all mountain boards are the Capita Mercury, the Burton Skeleton Key, and the Libtech Apex Orca. One thing to keep in mind if you are looking at all mountain boards is you might see variations, such as an all mountain freestyle board. This will be a board that is designed to ride all mountain terrain for that person who also has a freestyle riding style, just like my friend Zach. He does a lot of tricks. He typically rides an all mountain freestyle board like the Burton Deep Thinker because he wants a board that can carve easily, but he can also trick with. You'll also see boards labeled as all-mountain freeride boards, which will be designed for that rider who enjoys riding on the resort and also charging hard in powder or in the backcountry. We might only be halfway through this video, but if you've learned something so far and this has been a helpful experience, it'd mean a lot if you would slap that like button so this information could spread to more people. Thanks. Now let's talk about the flexes of a snowboard. There is the longitudinal flex, which runs from nose to tail, and the lateral or torsional flex, which runs from edge to edge. When checking out a snowboard, you mainly will be examining the longitudinal flex. Knowing this will show you the action and responsiveness of each board. A softer flexing board is better suited for beginners as it is easier to control and manipulate. It will also be more forgiving, making it easier to learn with. A stiffer flexing board, on the other hand, is better suited for higher level riders because it takes more energy to manipulate and therefore delivers more energy in response. Stiffer boards are designed for advanced riding as they want to go fast more often. Because of their response, they also provide more snap and power in their overall ride. To properly inspect a board's flex, you're going to wrap your arm around the underside of the nose and firmly press through the midsection of the board. Don't be afraid to put a good push into it because you won't break this board. As you do this, make sure the entire board is flexing and not just the tail. Often I see people who use their knee or just one hand. Don't be one of these people because this won't show you much of a difference and it will just make you look like you don't know what you're doing when checking out a board. The torsional flex is harder to check the difference between boards, but basically this is the flex that will allow you to foot steer when you're riding. Once you've ridden many different snowboards, the flexes will become an aspect of preference. Because of this, you could see an advanced level rider who really likes a softer flexing board because they can easily butter with it and press it on rails and boxes. Or you might see someone who knows they only like stiff boards because they are riding at top speed everywhere they go. If you're looking into buying one of your first snowboards, I would suggest looking for a flex that's right in the middle of the road. This will give you the stability when you're cruising at higher speeds, but also the maneuverability to be able to use that board with ease. All right, so now that you have an idea of which riding style and flex you'll be looking for, the next thing you need to know is what size snowboard you should look for. The main factors that will determine the proper size for you is your weight, height, and snowboard boot size. The most important of these is going to be your weight, because a snowboard will know how much you weigh, but it's not going to know how tall you are. For example, I am 6 feet tall, but I'm lighter than an average person my height, so I might ride a board slightly smaller than the average 6-foot person. If you're looking at the spec sheet on a board, you might see a column for rider weight. Use this to help decide which size you should get. You'll notice there will be an overlap in the sizing compared to weight, but you'll want to be about right in the middle of the weight bracket. One of the most important things you should know about snowboard size is that there is not one perfect size for you. While you have one set size for, say, your boots, you do have a little bit of leeway when picking your snowboard size. If you can't decide between two sizes, feel confident knowing that if you want a slightly more powerful board that will hold up better at top speeds, go with the bigger size. If you want a slightly more nimble and maneuverable board, go with the smaller size. For your height, you'll want your board to lie from below your chin to no greater than above your lip. But again, your weight is more important, so refer to the board's size chart as well to compare these two. The last important thing in regards to size is finding a board with the proper width for your boot size. This is key because you do not want a board that will be too narrow for your boot. This will give you toe and heel drag when turning in a deep carve, and that's not something you want. When looking at this, don't be alarmed if you happen to take your boot and see a little bit of overhang when placing it on your board. Most will look like this, and once your boots are lifted higher with your bindings, this shouldn't be a problem. It is when there's an excess of overhang when you will see an issue. Matching up board widths can be confusing because it is the difference of millimeters. But to make it easier, just keep this in mind. If you have a 10.5 and up boot size, you'll want to look into getting a wide specific board. Most models come in additional wide sizes, and they are denoted by having a W next to the sizing number. Lastly, with board sizes, you may see specialty boards where what I've just explained will be disregarded. For example, the Nitro Cannon, which comes in a size 173 and 203. This board has the waist width of about a 159 size board, but is meant to be ridden extra long. There are also boards that are meant to be ridden much smaller. These boards are referred to as volume shifted boards because the volume has been taken from the length and put into the waist width of the board. Take the Libtech Orca, for example. While I typically ride a 158 size board, in the Orca I've ridden as small as a 153 and even a 150. If you are looking into getting your first snowboard, maybe don't look into the extra long boards, but don't be afraid to check out the volume shifted boards. The Libtech Orca and the Ride Warpig are two great volume shifted boards that are even fun for beginners. If you are in the market for a snowboard and you do have the option, make sure you head down to your local snowboard shop. Not only will you be supporting your local snowboard community by doing so, but you will now be able to ask all the proper questions to a local shredder who will help you find the perfect board. If you don't have access to a local shop, head on over to radioboardshop.com where you'll find the best selection of every type of snowboard. Now that you understand the shape, the riding style, the flex, and the size of what to look for in a snowboard, the last important piece of the puzzle is knowing about the camber profiles. The three main types of profiles are rocker, regular camber, and hybrid, all of which will drastically change the ride of a board. Rocker or reverse camber has this shape and will be the most forgiving and beginner friendly. Regular camber has the opposite shape of rocker, like this, and will give you the most aggressive ride and be the least forgiving. And then there's hybrid, which is a combination of both rocker and camber. Generally, you will see hybrid boards with a rocker section between the feet and regular camber under the feet. This gives a best of both worlds scenario with the ease of rocker and the stability of camber. Understanding camber profiles is one of the most important things when buying a snowboard. So much so that I made an entire video explaining the whole subject. There are other profiles I go over while also diving deeper into the explanation of all of these. Once you watch that video, you'll know everything you need to confidently find your perfect snowboard. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace!